It has been an interesting 7 days previous for All Elite Wrestling, and Tony Khan had AEW Revolution, a hell of a pay-per-view on Sunday, and we'll get to that. But we got to talk about the big news that was announced last Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. And when I say we, of course, I mean myself and the man joining me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. Not only is he the host of the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast, you also see and hear him weekdays with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live. And as I've said many times before, he is the voice of reason for that very fine program. He is Mike Sempervive. Follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Mike, it's good to hear from you. Let's get right into it. Tony Khan announced last Wednesday that he has agreed to purchase Ring of Honor Wrestling from Sinclair. Just give me your overall thoughts. We'll get into a little bit of the details.
You know, it's wild, man. It really is a wild situation because we don't even know exactly what he's bought yet. We know he's bought a whole catalog of old videos. We know he's got that. But what else does he have? There's no wrestlers under contract. We know they're going to be running a show, WrestleMania weekend, with some names from the outside that'll be coming in. Names like Swerve Scott and Alex Zane. You know, they were signed for a match. Neither one of them is under contract with Ring of Honor. Ninja Mac is coming in. He's not under contract. So what is all this? What is this about? We don't know. And frankly, I don't know if Tony Khan knows quite yet what he's even got. You know, he hasn't been able to answer any questions, and, you know, understandably so, about will the show remain on Sinclair affiliates nationwide, even if it's in a short period. Again, there's so many questions that need to be answered here. Are they starting a streaming service? Are they starting a streaming service on their own where they need ROH? Are they using it to pad their own stuff because they're going to have a channel on HBO Max? Is this to run every 2 weeks like a super indie promotion, twice a weekend, 2 weeks out of the year like a lot of indies do, or 2 weeks out of the month like a lot of indies do? If so, that changes the ball game as far as indies go and all of that. Do they decide to take Elevation, say, and make that the ROH program? What are they going to do here? Who knows? It has opened up a big question mark. There was a big question with ROH anyway, but now with this, it's like there's literally a zillion different ways this thing could go, including they run this last show, they fold it all up, they just use the old video clips, and that's it. Doesn't seem to be that that's what he wants to do, but my God, you start opening up one box, it leads to all these other ones.
You're right. He did mention on Wednesday night on Dynamite that they do plan on running something under the ROH brand. Now, as you mentioned, the first thing that I think of is television. Right now, Ring of Honor runs on all the Sinclair-owned TV stations and affiliates, as well as the RSNs on some, Stadium. What happens to that? We've got one here in Austin. The CBS affiliate here in Austin is a Sinclair station. So does that time period go by the wayside? And then, I think the more prevalent rumor has been that they're going to turn it into developmental for AEW, which I don't know. I'm not crazy about it because, it lessens the ROH brand, but at the same time, how much less can the brand go?
I think there could be a way to re-envision what a developmental territory in theory could be. And I think we see a little of it with New Japan Strong and New Japan, even though it's not exactly apples and oranges here. If you have a Ring of Honor show and say you go with the idea that they're going to be, let's say, a super indie and not really be run every week like a traditional television show, but do tapings on those weekends that you can then package together, run as your TV show if that's what you decide to do. But you bring in some names that maybe, like, again, just say, for example, people who are out there unsigned, Ninja Mac. Okay, we want to bring him in. He's a big name. We can put him against Bandito. And Bandito's not under contract. We know that's going to be an awesome match. And then we have another awesome match where we maybe have a Ring of Honor guy. Because again, what's going to happen with contracts? How is all this going to work? But maybe this AEW guy, we bring him in and we have another big name AEW guy. And then for the rest of the show, that's where you see, you know, some members of Dark Order who you usually only see on Elevation. Maybe you see this person or that person who you're only seeing on Dark. You know, maybe that's the best way to maybe go about looking at these things and looking at it like a indie would, where they don't really have a choice. You use your locals, you use your younger talent, you use your trainees, but then you try to bring in those big names to get eyeballs on the show and to sell tickets. And again, that is certainly something they can do with the size of the roster that they have, and it stays true to the vision of what Ring of Honor is. Of course, we needed a alternative at the time Ring of Honor came to be, but I don't think anybody involved there, of course, didn't think that they were going to walk in and be WCW or even ECW. You know what you are. At the end of, no matter how big everybody talks, everybody, I don't care what indie promotion it is in the country, unless you're WWE or AEW, you're going to lose people to there. And you know what you are. You're a feeder for those things. So you can actually stay true to what you really were to begin with, and developing and showing off your Punks and Daniels and Styles and McGinnises and Joes and all of these other folks, Steens and Genericos. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, that would not have gotten a chance or didn't get a chance anywhere else. And I think that Ring of Honor could actually provide that. But again, who knows what direction they decide to take things?
I mean, the other question comes up to me is, okay, so Ring of Honor let go of all their contracts. You know, I think they got like 2 or 3 that expire at the end of March, but otherwise they have no contracted talent. Does Tony Khan decide to contract talent under Ring of Honor? I mean, is he going to sign these guys to, you know, a 6-month or a year deal to be on Ring of Honor? And again, I think that a lot of that will tie into whether or not they have the television set up, whether it's on Sinclair or maybe it's a new time slot late night on TBS, TNT, whatever. It was exciting news at first, but like you said, so many questions. And I think maybe we'll see an answer or two maybe on April 1st at Supercard of Honor. What do you think?
I think we're going to have to. I can't believe that they're going to come out of that weekend where they're honoring the people that they're honoring and doing that sort of stuff. And obviously, look, they're going to do the Kerry Sulkin Award every year. They said it's going to be an annual thing. So they're going to continue to keep ROH living and existing in some form, or at least the attempt is going to be to do that. But, you just brought up the thing with contracts. We were talking about this on Observer Live a while back with Sinclair and still them owning it. Do you have 4 or 6 or 8 people under contract for Ring of Honor? And then, is that something that you do? You brought up networks, True TV. How many eyeballs are on True TV? Could you do something where you have AEW Elevation now as ROH Elevation? Or again, there's so many different ways that this thing could go, but I can't believe that you would come out of WrestleMania with all the eyeballs are going to be there. I mean, that was going to be, it was going to be their fresh start last year or 2 years ago, and it blew up in their face. Obviously last year was what it was. And now this year, they announced the date and then they end up, everything happened the way it happened. So if by that point they don't have an idea, I'm going to start feeling a little bit nervous. They don't have to, disclose everything. But if there's no plan, or if we're still kind of scratching our heads after it and we really don't know what's going on, that's when you start really wondering, okay, is this really now dead and buried? And we're going to really be looking at this as just, a lot of money that's going to have to be spent to clean up old tapes, because again, Final Countdown, they're not paying for Europe. Okay, that's the one thing with that song. It's unaffordable and it's all over it. So then what do? You know, there's so many. There's so much money that's got to be spent still for those pre HD net days that I don't think people really realize either. I mean, that's one of the reasons that ROH dragged their feet and they're, you know, on putting a lot of that older stuff up as it was. So much work needs to be done to it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, you know, like I said, hopefully we'll see some sign of something on April 1st. You know, we'll see. That's going to be an interesting night there at the Curtis Caldwell Center in Garland for Supercard of Honor. Let's switch gears to the pay-per-view, AEW Revolution. I've heard, you know, from pundits, and I probably wouldn't argue it too much. This was probably one of AEW's best pay-per-views so far. What do you think?
I thought it was their best. I thought top to bottom, it really was their best one. And I think there have been, you can argue there have been better matches depending on what you like, because, you know, obviously Kenny Omega's not on the show. He's had incredible matches. You had the Young Bucks against Penta and Phoenix. I mean, there's been a ton of great matches. So you could say, hey, maybe have been better matches. You might even say a show like All Out, maybe you preferred that as a show. I'm not going to argue with you on that, but I think top to bottom, match quality, and that includes the 3 pre-show matches, I thought from pillar to post, this was their strongest performance yet. And again, there may have been higher, you know, spots, you know, remembrances from other cards, but I don't want to say that this thing was perfect, but damn, it was pretty darn good. I mean, yeah. I don't know, where do you punch the hole through? You know, you look at it and it's like the weakest match on the show was the very first pre-show match with Layla Hirsch and with Chris Statlander. And even that was certainly, you know, nothing to complain about. Beats a sharp stick in the eye. So it's like the show built from there. And I thought across the board paid off really well. Now, we can get into some of the things that maybe we thought were going to happen that didn't. Yeah. Thunder Rosa. But I think we have an answer to that. That's going to be coming up in San Diego. So, and I just, again, there's to me, there are nits that, you know, you can pick because that's what we do.
Right.
But I think overall, boy, I don't know how anybody can really say that they didn't get their 50s worth out of this deal or however much it cost you on pay-per-view.
I agree. I do agree with you. We saw that they're going to have, I think, Wednesday night on Dynamite, if you're hearing this on the horn, it will have already happened probably. The number 1 contenders match between Layla Hirsch, Thunder Rosa. The winner gets Britt Baker in San Antonio. Thunder Rosa lives in San Antonio. That's, you know, that seems to be, and unlike WWE, AEW likes their folks to go over in their hometowns. So it feels like we might see that title change happen at the Freeman Coliseum. We'll see. Like you said, top to bottom, this was one of those pay-per-views. You had the high spots. Everything stayed good. The length of the pay-per-view, I've heard some crying about that. And we're talking, if you count the buy-in, we're talking for at least 4.5 hours.
5 hours.
Yeah, almost 5 hours. You know, if it wasn't such a good pay-per-view, I think I might have a problem with that. But it was so good, it's kind of hard to argue, you know, again, you know, if you're going to shorten it, what do you cut? So what do you think? I mean, was it too long? Was it right? Was it just right because of the quality? What say you?
They only run 4 of these a year. So, and I come from, you know, I've watched a lot of New Japan Tokyo Dome shows over the years, and you have that Tokyo Dome show, you know, at one time, there was only one of them. And, you know, you would have that show and it would be their WrestleMania, that big 5-hour, big show, big matches on it. And that length of time doesn't bother me because unlike WWE, for a person like me who's got to keep up with it, you have 3 hours of Raw every week and 2 hours of NXT and 2 hours of SmackDown. By the time you hit WrestleMania week, And it's just like, and now you got, 2 5-hour shows. Okay. Or even regular pay-per-views. Forget about WrestleMania, because even that's a special occasion, but it's like 4-hour pay and all the video packages and all that sort of stuff. And then with this, it felt like more of when New Japan had their shows. And it was, again, or really when you just have a traditional big show, there's only 4. So how many times can you really pull off this masturbatory spectacular to yourself? I mean, you only get a few chances to do it, and you're charging people $50, which, look, and you want that off traditional pay-per-view, which, look at everything now. Be like, it's streamed every pay-per-view for $9.99 on the network or whatever it is. It's like, so that's an investment for people. So I think he wants to give Tony Khan, I think AEW wants to give you your money's worth and your time. And I think, in this day and age where, if you're like me and you're an old man and you fall asleep in a chair watching the show like I did, and you wake up at 4:00 in the morning, Monday morning, and got to watch the rest. Look, it's easy to do. You know what I'm saying? The only thing you do is you got to stay off social media so you don't spoil yourself. But I think when you get the variety that they had too, and that's what matters too, that variety that you have. If it was 12 matches, all of the same thing over and over again, it would be tiring, but they gave you something different in every match. And that's why I thought also that it was their best effort yet, because not only did they give you all this stuff and it was good, it was a hell of a variety of different things.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm talking with Mike Sempervive from Wrestling Observer Live. Yeah, you start off the main pay-per-view. You started off with Kingston and Jericho, which had to be a love letter to Japanese wrestling. So we're talking old Japanese wrestling. Then you go to the tag title match, which had all the high spots and everything. You go to the ladder match. Yeah, like you said, each one just a different style of match, gave you a little something of everything. The dog collar match. I mean, well, okay, let's back it up. First, Wardlow wins the Face of the Revolution ladder match, which I don't know if he was, considered a favorite. I think he was in the talk, but I think a lot of people had that penciled in as either Keith Lee or maybe Ricky Starks. Wardlow, though, was a great choice. And then you get to the dog collar match, which, first of all, that was, again, that was a love letter to, Piper and Valentine, basically. And you get through and MJF looks like he's got him in the clutches, and he calls Wardlow, comes down there, and he can't find the ring. He's checking pockets. And then Punk hits GTS, lays out MJF, and oh, hey, there's the ring.
How about that?
And sits it on all he does, he's looking at Punk, just sits it on the apron, doesn't give it to him, just sits it on the apron and walks off. So, I mean, I think that was for all of us that were, looking forward to that Wardlow face turn. That was as subtle of a face turn as you could get, and still got the appropriate reaction that it got. And then CM Punk, you watch the post event scrums, and CM Punk absolutely emotional about that match. Give me a couple of your moments of the night for on Revolution.
That was certainly one of them, and the satisfaction, if you've been following the story, of knowing, this has been rubbed in Wardlow's face literally from day one of showing up. You work for me. Well, now that he's got that big old donut that he won there, regardless of what MJF does, firing him or not, or wanting to keep him on, he's now beholden to AEW because he's got a title shot whenever he wants one. So, yeah. Looked for the ring, damnedest thing, found it. There it is. Where they go again, where they decide to go, who knows? But Wardlow is a star. People love seeing him sit vicious people all over the place. Everybody got what they wanted. They got it at a great time to finish off of what was a great feud. AEW is the best thing that they've done, I think, bar none, from the time the company started, has been the CM Punk and MJF thing. And I think it ended, at least this chapter of it ended spectacularly. Chris Jericho coming out there, number one, whatever he's done to his body, he has got to keep doing because he looks fantastic. So no, he looked great. Physically, he looked fantastic. Now, I don't think he needs to wrestle Eddie Kingston too many more times because that half and half suplex that he took right on top of his head to open the match, it was like, oh, it's going to be that kind of match, eh? And Jericho, look, you got Kings Road Eddie Kingston in there against old Wrestle and Romance Chris Jericho, for one night. And I thought they absolutely kicked butt. I thought Moxley and Danielson, I don't know what the best match was of Kingston Jericho, Moxley Danielson. Boy, Punk and MJF.
Yeah. Hard to pick. But boy, one thing that those other matches didn't have was Lord Regal coming out there looking pissed off at these two guys who, John Moxley said it. I can't be your brother if we haven't bled buckets yet. Yeah. Well, now that they've bled buckets, and boy, did they. That the ending of that, because it was, again, for me, it didn't matter who won. I had a feeling Moxley was going to win, but it's like, okay, now what? Because the way they've been pushing this, and it's like, okay, how is this all going to work? And then the complete curveball of Regal coming out there, and it's like, well, now it makes perfect sense. Now, whether they like each other or not, Dad's home. We got to play nice. Maybe because Dad's home. Dad, we can all be a family again. What does this mean for Moriarty, for Wheeler Yuta, for Daniel Garcia? Mm-hmm. It opens up now so many more possibilities of, are these guys going to be a tag team? Are they going to be singles? Is this a dojo? What is going to happen here? We've got these special things now. Things were settled, yet we still have stories coming out of what was settled, which is really all you want out of wrestling anyway. You know what I mean? You go, one story closes, the other ends, but look, and I know I'm aging myself here, but a great example, 1986 Jim Crockett Promotions, Dusty Rhodes, names that you all know, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, The Russians, Ric Flair, The Horsemen, Dusty, Magnum, Valiant. What all these guys had, they all had their separate things going on, but everything was interwoven just enough where if you did close this story, you had something to pull from. And if somebody got hurt, you had this, and things mattered. This is why the layers of stories matter, all that stuff. It's why people get so upset with WWE fans. And I understand pure WWE fans who grew up with it that don't care about some of those layers, because WWE, it's a lot of surface, and that's okay. It's like pop music. Yeah. You can put to a zillion examples, and people can badmouth it and say, I hate that. Look, if nobody likes TMZ, everybody's the most educated, well-read person in the world. Yet, you got a bunch of books sitting there collecting dust, yet these get all the hits. Somebody's lying. So it's like, that stuff is okay. I'm not trying to plant my flag against WWE, far from it. But it's a completely different type of situation now, because the things that I think make WWE would make them better are just old wrestling tenets that they had gotten so far away from, that AEW, frankly, now more than anybody, does the best. New Japan's booking sucks, but you see how the effort and the care that they've put into a lot of their talent, their older veterans that matter, their mid-card, their young guy, everybody's got a purpose. Everybody's got a place. Everybody's got pros and cons and blacks and whites against each other. So, when it comes time to call on one of them, you have a better chance. Or when the booking does suck, at least your fans know, I believe in that guy. And that's where WWE, unfortunately, is having to bring in this entire circus and bring back Stone Cold and threaten Vince McMahon and have Pat McAfee and bringing in Johnny Knoxville and Logan and all this stuff, because at the end of the day, what do you have? The only thing you have is Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Period. That's it. That's the only thing you have. Yeah, you mentioned William Regal. That was the perfect way to debut him in AEW, having him come down, play the dad there between Moxley and Danielson. That was, and the reaction he got absolutely deserved. One of the best minds in wrestling. And we touched on a little bit with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, but for as great of this was a great show despite no titles changing. All the titles
Yeah.
stayed with their champions. So you still have Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus as tag champs. You still got Jade Cargill as TBS champ. You still got Britt Baker as the women's champ and Hangman Page as the AEW World Champion. It was, like you said, just it was layers, and there's something, and like you mentioned, being able to pull from this and that and have everything kind of loosely connected, just enough to where you could pull it. The other debut we saw was Shane Strickland signing his deal to be All Elite. You've seen Shane. I've seen Shane. I drove him around Austin so many times when he used to wrestle for Wrestle Circus. Talk for a second about how special a talent Shane Strickland is and how much he will flourish in AEW.
I tell you, I think I called him his WWE name, and I apologize for that. But the former Swerve Scott in NXT, but Shane Strickland, Isaiah Swerve Scott, I think it was. But yeah, yes. Shane Strickland is what he's always been known by in wrestling, or at least that's how we know him. And for those of people who have not seen him, there's a free matchup right now that Defy just put out there of him and 16-year-old Nick Wayne. And man, Swerve's a star. And Nick Wayne's a star too. That's what you're going to see. You're like 16 years old. Yeah, this kid is absolutely nuts, crazy, amazing for his age. But, I don't think they even did a good enough job with Swerve on the pay-per-view for how much he's going to shine on that promotion. You see him in a suit. He looks fantastic. I mean, Brian brought that up. I think it may have been actually before the show too. We were talking to somebody, and it's like he gets being a star. He has got supreme confidence. This guy that was in the military. He's done a lot. He's been a lot and done a lot of things. He knows who he is, and he's confident in who he is, and that comes out. And then you watch his work. He's a modern day of this town. God, they didn't. Him and Santos Escobar should have been what WWE was seeing in NXT and going, we want this for the main roster. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like we never really got it. And he is just so good physically as far as being able to make things look good. Your Blake Christians, your Alex Zanes, he fits in perfectly with all of those guys. He's got believable thumping, as far as throwing hands and the ability to do physical things, but he can do a little of everything. And I think, again, he's not tall.
No.
In AEW, that doesn't matter that he's not tall because he's going to be bigger than a lot of the guys that are there. And the bottom line is he can work with everybody. Brody King, you get a big guy like that. He can, again, throw hands to a certain point with Brody to make it believable. But then when Brody starts taking over, he can rely on his quickness. He faces a guy like, again, your guys like your Ninja Max, your super speedball, Mike Speedball Bailey, your super speedball guys, literally one in Mike Bailey right there. He can still compete with those guys, overpower them, make it look convincing, but then also, again, match the speed. He's just, to me, he is a total package, and a lot of people have thought the same thing. He can talk. He looks good. He's well-read. You put him on. He's the perfect guy, and he's one of those guys that WWE had, and just poof, they didn't get it. They didn't understand it. He talked about they bring everybody up to the main roster. They immediately get rid of B-Fab, which was part of it, and then things just disintegrated from there. Mm-hmm. And I think Unleashed, he's going to be, and we'll see how it goes. There's a lot of names in AEW right now. A lot of eyeballs have gone on, are they going to sign this person and Jeff Hardy coming in? What about all this stuff that goes on? Swerve Scott, by the end of 2022, I think he's going to be firmly in the title picture because him and Omega, him and Page, him and Moxley, he matches up with everybody. I could be dead ass wrong about this. I'll be the first person to come on this show and say, I'll eat the boot, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this guy's going to be a star. And I think the more people see him, I've been surprised about this too. I stay in the wrestling bubble sometimes, like, man, people really don't know this guy. when would you have a chance to see him if you didn't watch NXT and you weren't heavy on the indies? When did you have a chance to see him? And he's been stuck in NXT for the last couple of years. So if you don't watch it, how do you know who he is? So he's got a lot to prove, and I think this is going to be a big deal for AEW.
I think he is. I do. Real quick, the trios match with Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, Sting, Matt Hardy, Andrade El Idolo, and Isaiah Kennedy. Now, Mike, you and I are right around the same age. I'm a little older, but we're getting there. Sting at 62, almost 63 years old, taking a dive into stacked tables. I mean, I don't know what to say about this.
He's having fun.
he
feels good. Fun. He feels good before he's doing it. How he felt Monday morning, I don't know. But that was one of my tweets, was like, here I am. I remember vividly watching Sting in 1986 when I'm 10 years old. And now here I am, just turned 46 years old. I'm falling asleep in a chair watching a pay-per-view, and 63-year-old Sting, which we will be in a couple of weeks, is diving off of balconies and off of overhangs to dive through tables. And spinal stenosis ain't what it used to be. I mean, that's for damn sure. Whatever medicines and everything that have brought back Edge and Sting and all these guys, it is crazy to me. He doesn't have to do what he's doing, but he's obviously for it. The team with Darby Allin is wonderful. The video package that they had before that was so left field, crazy, typical Darby Allin. To me, that's why you don't do a zillion video packages to build up matches and have that nonsense that WWE does. So when you do them, they actually mean something, because that was awesome. And then you got Sting out there with a flamethrower, and then he's a 63-year-old flamethrower. I had a chance to see him, 68-year-old Tatsumi Fujinami, and 72-year-old Fujiwara in a match just not long ago too. And I will tell you this, 68-year-old Tatsumi Fujinami doesn't look like he is aged a day.
No, you're right. You're right.
Amazing. And these guys who are over 60, much less over 50. The over used to be 40. Well, that's when you kind of learn how to work, and then you're out and done by 50. Now these guys are in their 50s. I mean, it's just absolutely nuts. Fun match with Sting. I don't want to see him do it too often, but God, I love seeing it. And as long as they keep him upright, he doesn't get hurt. Oh man, it's such a trip. This is 2022, and Sting is still Sting. It's the best. It's the absolute best.
I couldn't agree more. I had you mentioned Fujinami. I got a chance to meet him a few years ago, and the man looked like he could go at any moment. He was doing a clinic. He was doing a clinic up at the former Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame up in Wichita Falls, and he was doing a clinic there. I mean, and he looked like he was, he looked 20 years younger. And Sting just having his best life and having the fun in wrestling that he didn't get in his brief stint in WWE. So, I mean, kudos to Sting. I love him forever. Overall, Hangman Page retains. Let's look in the crystal ball a little bit. Who do you see as his next contender? Is it MJF? Is it CM Punk? Punk mentioned, possibly going for the world title in his post-match media scrum. Who do you see as next up to challenge Hangman for that world title?
Boy, it's going to be interesting. And it's, when do you do it? Do you do it at the pay? Do you do it the next pay-per-view? How exactly is it going to go? I kind of lean towards MJF, and him trying to weasel himself in there into that match, because then you got to deal with Wardlow, and you got him kind of as an outlier there. You have Punk with a win over MJF and him wanting to stake his claim. I kind of like that idea, especially now that the diamond ring's off MJF as well too, and the build towards towards MJF and Paige. You know, the problem with that is I can't see MJF not giving the belt to MJF then, if that's what you're going to do next. And then you go, okay, well, has Adam Page had the title reign that, you know, that definitive title reign? You know, they spent all these years, they had the plan to lead up to it. They wanted to stick with their plan, even though I think it was going sideways a lot of the time when it came to the drinking stuff and and some of the ways, again, he was weakened. And I know the story they were trying to tell, but it's like, it backfired again with Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy. You had Adam Cole, who you didn't need to be tied up in that stuff. He's winning matches. He took a visible loss, and a lot of people brush that off. Hey, it was Orange Cassidy moves the needle. Well, what does that have to do with the title match? You know what I mean? What do ratings in that sense of Orange Cassidy have to do with an Adam Cole, Adam Page match? You know what I mean? And I think it did cool Cole off. And all you had to do if you were going to do that stupid match with Cassidy was when they fell through and he wanted to do that homage to NXT with him and O'Reilly or whatever it was, then you actually had Adam Cole, the heel, win the match because Cassidy's knocked out and you could have had him pinned. Would that have changed anything with the build of this? Maybe not, but it would have gotten some more steam behind Cole because it just seemed like he was really soft going into this match with Paige, who, look, he's not Moxley. He's not Danielson. He's not some of these other bigger personalities. You're still trying to get him to a level. And you had that with the great match with Kenny Omega. You had the great match with Bryan Danielson. You had the Bloodfest, and you quickly went to a Texas death with Archer to prove his toughness, and you got a victory there. Now you have this. You know, if you give him somebody strong, to me, you better beat him. So that would be my only problem with MJF, and that's something where Punk or Danielson or some of the other people, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is because I don't really know what they're aiming at, but I would kind of tend to lead towards a feud where he can beat a big name in a big match and then kind of go from there, because I don't want to, I don't know, him beating MJF. I don't think really that's the direction that you want to go, is have MJF go and fail at it and then have him try to come back. You know, I think he should dastardly win it if he does. But, you know, from there, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Yeah. I really, really don't, because is Chris Jericho looks like he's still going to stay tied up with Kingston for a little bit. So then it's like, okay, well, that takes Kingston out of that equation. With Moxley and Danielson again too, one of those two guys to be that person and maybe fighting over it and trying to, you know, who does Regal send out there, or maybe it's Regal aligning them to go after Paige. You guys are missing the boat here. You're not setting the example for these young guys that you want to coach up so much. Go after this guy, you know, taking it again. To me, it's got to be somebody established that's going to make Paige better coming out of the thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, we're going to find out, and it's going to be. I've got a lot more trust in Tony Khan than I do Vince McMahon, so I think whatever it happens, it's going to make sense, and we'll be ready for it. Whether it's at Double or Nothing or the Battle of the Belts or whatever. So
you know what wouldn't hurt my feelings? Him going through Taz, him and Ricky Starks, him and Powerhouse Hobbs, you know, him in that mix where he could maybe get 2 title defenses and look good against those guys and to me, I don't know. But then again, are those guys too far down the pecking order right now? Are they big enough stars? And that's, again, they're in a funny position with Paige because he's so good. He's so talented.
Right. And
but he still needs that something. There's something there that obviously he's not there yet, but he's on the way there. It's just getting him up and over that hump.
And it feels like they may be putting Ricky with Keith Lee, which, I mean, I called that match when they worked at Inspire years ago, the title ranking match in Inspire with those two. It'd be great to see it on television on AEW. So we'll see what happens.
And you know what the crazy thing is too with Paige?
What's that
title is the person that, you know, may be next. He may not even be in the promotion yet, or maybe, you know what I mean? It could be, it literally could be, it could be Swerve for all we know. I mean, there's a zillion people now. Claudio, another guy.
That was the name that was on my my brain. Claudio, the former
so
Cesaro.
it's like it's a embarrassment of riches that they have at their fingertips right now, because again, they see the bigger picture and they see I should say that they see a different picture than what's seen out of Stanford.
Here we go. Hangman Page, the AEW World Champion, versus Jonathan Gresham, the Ring of Honor World Champion. Why not?
It's another one. And that, I tell you what, there's another one. I don't know what their deal is with Fight TV. You want a streaming service that you want to also have with Ring of Honor as you try to sell this service that you're going to put together. Terminus out of Atlanta. And there's the other thing too, Stu, and you know this being down there in Texas too, because Keith, I'm sure you heard Keith Lee's interview with Jericho.
Yeah,
and talking about, again, it's quiet in Texas, but there is talent there. You know damn well there's talent there. And obviously things have changed from the time he was originally down here to where we are right now too. That should be noted about that. But it's like, you're going to run 2 shows in Philadelphia under the Ring of Honor banner, do it there. And then get your people out working to go do more. And that's that's going to be a thing too, is going to be interesting. AEW talents that are now currently working on the indies.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder if some of them who are under contract get pulled back a little bit, or maybe asked very nicely, please don't do that. You know what I mean? There's plenty of things where, again, you have other names that can kind of filter in and fill those spots for them. I don't know. All of this is really interesting too, because again, you start making moves. Again, guys who are under contract now, because that was always one of the fun things. This guy can work anywhere. Joey Janela can work GCW, or this person can work, go to Japan, or this person can do this or that. That might start changing a little bit too in some of the terms of that, because, again, you don't want to see somebody get hurt and blow out it. Look, do what happened with Mance Warner or something like that with, you get a bad ring or something like that. If somebody breaks an ankle, that's one of the things WWE would always be concerned about for years with guys working indies. That's why they wanted to have groups that they were confident in, so you didn't have any problems with that, boards not being put down right, or any of that nonsense.
You're right. And you meant, like you said, the Texas talent, it's going to be showcased in 3 weeks in Dallas Fort Worth with all the promotions there. So there are a lot of talent out there. He is Mike Sempervive. Catch him on the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast. Also catch him daily on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez, and follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Mike, a pleasure as always. I feel like I learn more talking to you. It's so good to talk to you. Are you going to be in Dallas Fort Worth for Mania?
I will. No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, then
I'm going to be a big old homebody. No, I'm a hide out on the East Coast. You can keep.
We'll catch up. Well, that's okay. We'll catch up afterwards. But man, until we talk again, be well and be safe.
You too, my friend. Thank you.